For Countdown's number 2 story, tonight's worst persons in the world, the bronze, to Colonel Ralph Peters, retired and crazy from Fix News, offering Neil Cavuto a solution to the problem of relocating detainees at Gitmo, possible future detainees, too. Once you commit an act of terror, in my book, you're outside. You're anathema. You should be killed. We're dealing with people who aren't human anymore. They're monsters. Just like in the movies, monsters deserve to die. And we agonize over this. There will be miscarriages of justice in a brutal war like this, but I don't think too many. We're pretty good at figuring out who's right and who's wrong. Actually, we're not. But that's almost besides the point. Colonel Peters, you do realize that if some authority in this country or another country just decided that you were a terrorist without proof or trial or even like a warrant, you do realize that according to your solution, they would be right simply to kill you. Our runners-up, Bill Hemmer and Fix News, during one of the Comedy Channel's 913 segments, hysterically branding Judge Sotomayor a racist, socialist, strange, food-eating, argumentative, empathetic, hot-tempered woman. They threw up a graphic that noted in her yearbook at Princeton she quoted that evil socialist, the candidate for president in the 30s and 40s, Norman Thomas. Never referred to it, never mentioned the quote. The quote was, "I am not a champion of lost causes, but of causes not yet won." Yeah, wow, almost Karl Marx. Must be code for, I love me some Che Guevara. Idiots. And our winner, a Mark Krikorian of a Center for Immigration Studies, writing at the National Review Online that it is unfair to the rest of us to have to pronounce Sotomayor's name correctly. Deferring to people's own pronunciation of their name should obviously be our first inclination, but there ought to be limits. Putting the emphasis on the final syllable of Sotomayor is unnatural in English. There are basically two options. The newcomer adapts to us, or we adapt to him. I don't know when your ancestors arrived in this country, Mr. Krikorian, but there was a time in which immigrants with tough-to-pronounce names were encouraged to change them, or sometimes had them changed for them at Ellis Island and elsewhere. Unless Sitting Bull is one of your ancestors, they either got here afterwards, Mr. Krikorian, or like mine, they resisted this racist, wallpapering pap that you are now spouting. If they hadn't, today, your name, by your own logic, would be Mark Crick. Mark, when it's my name, it's my right. When it's Sotomayor's name, she should change it. Krikorian, today's worst person in the world. Meet Congressman John Culberson of the 7th District of Texas. We have heard him before say goofy stuff, but nothing that would make him a first-teamer. He is the guy who announced that the stimulus package was, quote, a Trojan horse that liberals are using to ultimately turn America into France. But that's nothing like the work of the true all-stars, Steve King of Iowa, or Mr. Shimkus of Illinois, the one who occasionally has ecstatic religious visions in the middle of his hearings, or, of course, legendary team captain Michelle Bachmann. But now, Mr. Culberson has elevated his game. He went on C-SPAN, which always seems like a good idea until you find yourself in the terminal stages of an answer so labyrinthine, so filled with double entendres that you cannot remember a time when you were not on C-SPAN, lost in your own sentences. Mr. Culberson was asked a pretty straightforward question. One assumes he thought he was giving a pretty straightforward answer.
You said a lot about how the federal government shouldn't be in our house. My question is about gay marriage. So do you really think the federal government should be in our house or the government shouldn't? Because as I know, gay marriage is the state government that controls that. So what do you think on that?
Well, under the 10th Amendment, the states have a first responsibility for providing for public safety, public health, public morality, all issues that just affect the people within that state. It's up to the states. And you either follow the Constitution or you don't.
Okay, we haven't gotten to the crazy yet. I just wanted to interject that the 10th Amendment reads as follows. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution nor prohibited by it to the states are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. That's it. That's the whole can of cheese whiz. Doesn't say a damn thing in there, Mr. Culberson, that the states have a first responsibility for morality and public. Maybe he was thinking of that when he went off like this.
Now, personally, I think that, and it's just, I think, also self-evident that you've got to have a marriage between a man and a woman, or society's not going to make it. I mean, you're not going to have a fruitful, productive, growing civilization unless marriage is between a man and a woman. I mean, that's just history. History will show you that. But it is a person's private business. Their private life is their private business. I'm fundamentally a libertarian at heart, and I do believe in the 10th Amendment. I don't want to hear about somebody's private behavior.
And I don't want to hear you keep referencing parts of the 10th Amendment that you and only you can see.
Now think about this. You cannot, if we provide civil rights protection to somebody based on private sexual behavior, well, the Constitution, the 14th Amendment says we have to provide equal protection.
Congressman, hello. You're talking about private sexual behavior and providing protection. Hello.
Federal law cannot permit, if one state, Vermont, wants to do that, you can't let that cross state lines. You've got to let, frankly, a lot of these issues have to be up to the states, but the federal government cannot permit, for example, the federal government has a legitimate role in interstate commerce.
Interstate commerce? Where the hell did interstate commerce come from, Congressman? Oh, yeah, we have to ship all that protection for the private sexual behavior.
And that's where the federal government's role comes in. And I think the federal government shouldn't recognize it. It's just a bad idea. And but fundamentally, the right of privacy is fundamental.
Well, there you have it. Fundamentally, the right of privacy is fundamental. Congressman Culberson sounds at all familiar to you. I suspect this is why.
Hell, I was born here, and I was raised here, and dadgummit, I'm gonna die here. And no sidewinding, bushwhacking, hornswoggling, crocker is gonna roll my biscuit cutter.
Now, who can argue with that?
Rub
Congressman John Culberson, 7th District of Texas, where the answer to every question is either the 10th Amendment, or fundamentally the right of privacy is fundamental, or the government has to provide protection for private sexual behavior. Possibly to harken back to the Congressman's remark about the stimulus plan, possibly protection involving the Trojan horse. WTF.